Hey everyone, it's Gabe from Sonora, and today we're tying a variation of the chewing gum worm. Similar to the San Juan worm, the material is going to be slightly different, and the material is actually going to have slightly more action and movement underwater on the slide than the traditional San Juan worm. So for the hook that we're using today is the Fulling Mill FM5045 in a size 14. The bead's going to be a Hareline slotted tungsten 3.3 millimeter in a metallic pink. Thread is going to be a Veevus 10-aught in white. And then just for a little bit of extra help sinking, we're going to be using some lead wire in 0.02. So this wire is super malleable and easy to break. You can just break it off by hand. And all we're going to do before we start our thread on is just get a little bit of this, probably 4 or 5 wraps of this lead on right behind the bead. Try to get it all lay flat, and you can actually push it right in up tight onto the bead. And now we don't have to do any kind of thread dam or anything to keep that bead from moving around. This lead's just going to butt up right to it nicely and keep that bead from moving on us. So now we got that all in, go ahead and start our thread right behind the lead. From there we can just go ahead and trim this. And now we do want to do some wraps up through the lead to keep it from moving on us. But once we get a handful of wraps through it with our thread, it's not going anywhere. Now, that bead's not going anywhere, that lead's not going anywhere, we're all set. So the material we're using is this F&F chewing gum worm in a marshmallow pink. All we're going to do, it's really nice material. It's got chunks of rubber leg and other like chenille material in it. So we're just going to take a little piece of this and go ahead and cut it. And now we're going to tie this in almost like a tail, or exactly like a tail. Drop it. Wrap down. We're actually go ahead and trim this upper piece here. We don't need it. Might help to even spin out our thread a little bit, make sure it's nice and flat. Help trap this material onto the hook. Back this down just before the bend of the hook. And we got our tail line. Now we're gonna take that other piece that we trimmed off, or not the small piece, but the larger piece, and we're gonna tie that in exactly where we tied in our other piece. Tie it all the way down to where our thread wraps had stopped tying in that tail. Once you get that, wrap all the way forward right behind the bead. And now we have this nice long piece here, and we're just gonna wrap this forward up to the shank of the hook, covering up the lead and all of our thread wraps. And right behind the bead, now that we have that in, just go ahead and trap it right up here behind the bead. Do some wraps behind, do some wraps in front. Make sure you really get it on there. Now it's not going anywhere. We can go ahead and trim this tag off. Now what we have to do is get a couple whip finishes right here behind the bead. Do 3, do another 3 just for good measure. And go ahead and trim off here. And that is the chewing gum worm in marshmallow pink variation.